tasks. So sometimes what I really recommend to parents is say, we need to break down that individually. So it's not go clean your room, it's let's go into your room and let's pick up your clothes off of the floor and put them in the hamper or put them in this dresser drawer. Okay, it's breaking down that task individually. Some parents will break down that task and they'll make like a visual chart or a visual schedule. That can be pretty helpful. For some reason, we do know that using visual cues and visual prompts does seem to work more effectively if they're used in the right way. So I had a mother that did an excellent job of developing this morning routine schedule. Her daughter has really severe problems getting ready for school in the morning. It's, it's constant wake you up, wake you up, wake you up. Once she's awake, it's like, hey, why aren't we getting dressed? You need to get your shoes on. We need to get this done. Why isn't this happening? So what she did is she developed this visual chart, kind of a visual prompt chart. And it basically outlines step number one. Step number one is go to the bathroom. Step number two is brush your teeth. And step number three is put your underwear on. I mean, it's very basic. And this is a fifth grader. So it's really kind of breaking down these tasks. What was interesting is when she first started to use this chart, which I thought was just superb in terms of how she put it together, she would often, I think what was happening was she was using the chart in a way that was not very effective. I never tell parents that they're doing something wrong. It's that they're just not doing something as effective as we can. What was happening is she would use this chart and she got frustrated because she says, I got this chart and she's not really following through with it. I still have to come in and hound her and get on her case about it. And as I talked to her, what I realized is that what would happen is mom would come into the room in the morning and she would basically recite the entire chart to her daughter. So she would be like, you have to get your teeth brushed. Now you have to get your underwear on. Now you need to get your shoes on. So she was basically using the chart and she was thinking in her mind that she was teaching her child how to use the chart. So you have to be a little careful because as you break down tasks or you use a visual cue or a chart, you don't want to get into a habit where you find yourself doing it for the child. And if you're just like me as a parent, it's a lot faster to just get it done. And it's a lot faster to, hey, we got to get this room clean, and it's just a lot faster if I just do it. But what is wrong with doing it that way? They're not going to learn. Right? I have 4 kids. I know. I get it. You got to be out the door at a certain time. You've got things you got to get done. Okay? My wife was out of town for 3 days this week, and I tell you, it's like all hell chaos breaks loose at 3:25. I'm like, what in the heck is going on in this place? You got kids running all over the place, grabbing drinks out of the cupboard. It's chaos. So I understand those things. Yeah. No question. Get in there. So when you break down those tasks, you have to make sure that you're helping to coach and teach the child how to do those things better. A mom used this term to me about 6 months ago, and I'll never forget it. She said, I've just learned that I have to become my child's coach. I just learned that I have to be their best coach and teacher. And when it comes to helping them learn how to clean their room or follow a certain task, she realized I just have to be their coach. But a coach is someone who prompts them in terms of what they need to do. So what I talked to this mother about, going back to the one who was using the chart, I talked to her about the fact you need to cue your daughter to use the chart. So what we were doing now is I would have her go into the room and say, Susie, what is step number 1 on your chart? And Susie would look at the chart and say, I got to go potty first. Okay, let's go potty first. After you go potty, what's step number 2? What is step number 2 on your chart? Okay. Asking it that way and starting to point it out that way seems to work a lot more effectively. So when your child comes home from school, you might want to say to them, you're home from school now, what do we do first? What's the first thing we do when you come home from school? Well, I run around and scream in my underwear and get a snack. You have to kind of ask it that way.
I was going to say, I like to give them choices too. Would you
Yes.
rather go to the bathroom or brush your teeth?
Absolutely.
You can make that choice.
If you break down that task and you kind of work with them on it and you ask them those questions, I want parents to ask lots of WH questions. What should you be doing now? Where should you be? What should be happening? What are you supposed to do next? When you ask those questions, it gets you thinking that way. Okay? And if I'm sitting down to a child who has ADHD and he's struggling with cleaning his room, I need to break that task down and say, well, what should we do first? And then what do we do after that? And then what do we do next? Yeah.
If I could just share an example of a visual cue that I instituted in my classroom, because I'm in a Montessori classroom with kids age 6 to 11, so there's a big gap, and every single one of these kiddos has an attention issue of some kind. And our big issue was we had kids just leaving the classroom without saying anything to us, and we kept saying, guys, you've got to tell us when you're going to leave, when you need to stop, whatever. So what I did was I created a great big stop sign and put underneath it, did you remember to ask the teacher before you left the room, and then instituted a consequence if they didn't. So it's at each door, so there's that big stop sign in their face, to remember to ask, and then also every time they did ask, reinforcing that, thank you for asking, good work, that kind of thing. So it's a process, like you said.
It's a process, and it's reinforcing the behavior that you want to see. So it's a great example. Yeah.
I know there's not a magic answer to this question, but we need, we have to teach these skills no matter what to the kids, whether they're on medicine, whether they're not on medicine, they need these skills, and all these suggestions. But do you think, at what point do you think it becomes critical that somebody is, what behaviors would you say it's critical someone would start with?
So the question is, what behaviors does it get critical when you feel like you need to start a medication? Well, pills don't build skills, right? And so we know that the most effective treatment interventions for ADHD is a combination of medication combined with behavioral intervention strategies. But you get to a point as a parent where you need medication when you get to a point probably when the level of impairment is to a point where you've tried lots of different interventions, but it's just not working very effectively. I want you to think about the fact that medication is a tool. It is not the tool. It is a tool. And we all have jobs that we have to do. And certain jobs are a lot more easier to do with the right kind of tools. And I'm not a pill pusher. I don't have drug companies buying my lunch on the weekends. But I want you to think about the fact that ADHD, remember, is a neurological disorder. And so the medications can be very useful as a tool. And if your child with lots of support, lots of interventions, lots of consistency are still struggling significantly, then you may want to consider a medication intervention and talk to your doctor about it. Yes?
Just a comment on that. My daughter that's been here was diagnosed in 2nd grade and is a senior in high school now. My husband's a pediatrician, and his goal is to cure. And this was very difficult for him to understand, well, how long is she going to, well, I mean, he knew, but as being a parent, it's different. And he wanted her to be better.
Sure.
And how long is she going to have to be on the medication? And I had to use the diabetes. And if your child needs glasses, why would you not get them glasses? Because I have known many parents and teachers that's a fine line. Parents do not want to medicate.
Sure.
Teachers don't want to insult the parent. I mean, so this has been my life for years. And that medication level has gone up and down with the different stress related with the years. But I mean, to think of it as that way, why, if your child needs glasses, your child needs insulin, would you not give it to them to help them? And I mean, it isn't for everyone, and there's so many different options out there, but
Sure.
That's just helped a lot of
good
people
perspective.
understand.
Yeah. Another additional quick tip is what I would like to really encourage you to do is to openly discuss with your child strategies that you feel like might work for them or for you. And sometimes what happens is we just get really frustrated with the behavior, so we tend to argue more about it instead of really trying to find a solution or come up with a solution. And it's critical that we try to work together to openly discuss that. The next one is to make sure we are monitoring. I have a lot of cases where parents come up with a really great plan at the first quarter of the school year, and they say, hey, we're going to monitor how many assignments you're getting turned in. We're going to keep track. Our goal is to make sure you're turning your work in every day. And then all of a sudden, I get a frantic phone call 2 days before the end of the quarter that my child has 55 missing assignments in their math class. And my question is, well, how come we're just now discussing this? And it's because life gets busy, you get distracted by lots of other things, but you have to make sure that whatever plan you put in place, that we are constantly monitoring that plan. And it's a daily process. It's like monitoring your blood sugar if you have diabetes. It's a daily thing. So you have to have a component in place where you're monitoring